Hey, iameyben, here with a sleep story. This sleep story is about love. I wrote this to represent love and the difficulties that it might have. This is a meditating story that helps you relax and clear your mind to have a nice sleep. So, whenever you're ready. Everyone in the pub were standing and clapping and acclaimed a man who was sitting behind a table, covered by a very long cape. People were happy and the pub was about to explode by their sound. The man stood up and came out of the big cape's hat, and a very bright and elegant, indescribable beauty showed up from beneath of that cape. Short time after, so many guards came into the pub and started to bring him out of the crowd, while he was hugging those people in his very arms. The guards helped the man out and opened a door for him to a very glorious brougham. But he didn't get in. He went to mount a white horse. After he walked into the streets, there weren't just the pub people who acclaimed the man. The whole city were. Yes, everyone. But who he was, who could have made this much crowd and noise all over the city? Eventually, the white horse stopped and the rider jumped down. Still, people's sound was loud. Very long doors opened. He went into the gates with his retinue. He raised his hand and waved it to the people who were calling his name. Teresa, Teresa, King Teresa. The mysterious man in our story is the king, King Teresa. It was him who came all over to visit his own people in the streets of DEP Empire. He was owned one of the largest empire in his time. No one actually could be sure about the exact place of borders. His dominion was included almost all over the earth. In the duration of his kingdom, the planet was covered by bliss. Sky, ground, wind, heat, sun. Everything was in the highest level of quality. The country was full of peace and love, equality, justice, joy, happiness, and everything. He was always open-armed to the people and couldn't see their pain or suffer. That's why he tried so hard to make the highest secure territory for them. No one could have guessed his kingdom's age, but it was thousands of years that everybody were known him as the king. I'd like to invite you to hear some more about the king himself. The king has so many names and so many titles. that people and his courtiers calls him with, like the light, bless, breath, the sun, the moon, the universe, savior, immortal, goddess, and all of the good adjectives that exists. Beside his power, he has the most prettiest visage in whole planet. It seems like God himself made the everything of him by his very hands. One of the reasons that people were worshipping him almost like a god was because of his breathtaking beauty. People used to travel very long distances to only watch him while he was out of the castle for his ritual performs. They do believe that even watching him can heal so many diseases and gives them peace. He has dark brown eyes, but people always are comparing his eye color with the oceans. The king has a bright and skinny face with very sharp jawlines, long black hairs, and he owns the most charming smile that could plays with all the creature's heart. His voice tone has no twin, at least not on earth. Everybody were all ears, even when he was trying to clear his throat. There were always a beautiful silence when he was speaking, because no one wants to miss a word of his talks. Unlike his physical beauty, he has the most incredible personality inside of that king style of his. His personality is even beyond. But I'll let you see what a soul he is. Tom H. was the head of the vampires, a vigorous man with broad shoulders. No one knew how old he was, but he owned the biggest vampire descendants. The moon was the whisper maker's king. No one could have seen them because they all were elves. They had the power to destroy or build anything because they were able to spread it out. Harris Connor was the king of hell, a very flaming and beautiful devil. Yes, he was beautiful like a devil should be. He was so perfect for manipulating anyone. There were always an empty chair for the ambassador of paradise. The fifth king was a witch with no armies or soldiers. One of the most powerful enchanter ever. Between the four powers were always so many fights, and they could never find the peace until that empty chair was filled by an archangel named Teresa. Between the four powers were always so many fights, and they could never find the peace until that empty chair was filled by an archangel named Teresa. The archangel has been made for the humanity and had numerous abilities to make the earth a live heaven. No one never understood how King Teresa made the peace treaty but he did. After the agreement, there were annual meetings, which they could see each other to decide about their governments. In one of the annual important meetings, the Allies didn't show up. After 1,000 years, and there were no sign of them in about a month. It was the first time after the peace treaty that Allies didn't come to the annual meeting. The king was deeply in thought. From his first day of being in charge of a king, he has kept his allies no matter what. He was constantly asking himself why they were gone. He was waiting for the midnight, a time that he could search for them himself. The valet voice came in. He was announcing one of his allies' name. He put his glass down and stood up. "He can come in," said the king. Tom, the vampire, came into the marble room. King opened his mouth to say something, but he couldn't. The man was covered by blood. "What happened, Tom?" asked the king. "You must come and see yourself, Your Honor," said the vampire. They both walked into a very deep hole in between of the DEP East's mountains. The gates of the purgatory, the only parallel world, has been opened. A world which every human must go through after leaving the earth. The purgatory pulled the supernatural inside after it was opened. The Allies were fighting there, and unfortunately, the only human, the witch, Uria, has been killed by the King of Purgatory to make an empty place on Earth's power. The Archangel did everything he could, but the gates didn't close, and he had no choice but to negotiate with the King of Purgatory for making the balance of powers. When he went to the afterlife world, he saw many of his people who were tortured, not released to find their heaven or hell. The King of Purgatory asked for royal union in return of giving peace to the souls of earth. A marriage between King Teresa and the most prettiest ghost of Purgatory. It was the wedding day, but no one hadn't seen the bride. The king was wearing his wedding suit, all in white. Numerous audience came to watch their beloved king's wedding. The bride walked into the church. Her face was covered by silk. The king put the silk aside. Stunning. She was so pretty. He smiled. He thought maybe he'd eventually found love. One of the conditions of the agreement was to protect the soul under any circumstances. A year after the wedding, the soul started to change. She was losing her flesh and turning to a black ghost. The archangel couldn't say this to anyone because it was a big threat for his people. Her condition were not good, and the power of the black soul was enough to even cause harms to the king. He flied everywhere to find treatments, but the only solution was one thing. He must have cut himself and fed the queen with pieces of his wings, a very painful treatment. But he did it. He did it constantly for the love he had in his heart. Everything started since then. Half a year after, he started this to help the queen, the country, and the people. For the first time in his life, he got sick. He was feeling pains. He started to age. He was aging. He couldn't fly much. He could feel tiredness. He begins to use medical treatments, everything that could give him energies or heal him for one day. People were sending clinical from all around his empire. He used to go to the old cities to see people's life and show them love, but he wasn't able to do that. So kinda everyone understood that he is ill. He couldn't hide it anymore. The spies of the purgatory found out the news, and the king of purgatory cruelly decided to put him down. His plan to ruin the empire was working. He pursued the elves to spread the news, and the moon signed the deal with them. The king is abandoning your afterlife by not caring for the queen, the ambassador of purgatory. The queen appeared in the palace balcony to make people believe all of the bad news about him. Their purpose wasn't peace, was the whole empire. The first bad rumors turned to the last. Because of his condition, he wasn't able to run the country. Every day, he was in bed, burning in so many fevers. He eventually finds out about what were happening outside. King went to the palace balcony, the place that was saint in people's eyes. And every time he was appearing there, all the windows opened on him. But this time, the same people closed all the windows and doors for the same king. He walked into the streets, to the alleys. It was as if the whole city was dead. He was walking with so many pains, but no one were there for him. He lose everything, even his allies, his job that he has been made for. Everyone gave the right to the false informations. He went to the tallest mountain with his white horse. Teresa gathered all his energies and flied back to the heaven to heal himself. He wasn't on earth for years. The blessed were gone and wars started again. The suffer has been replaced with the peace. The pain of the people called him to the ground once again. His return had a condition, revealing the truth. People choose a judge by their votes and send the archangel and the ex-queen to an open-air court. Children of paradise defended him in court. Their heavenly true evidences changed the public look to the archangel. The love they've had for him sprouted again in their hearts. The human judge gave him his life back. Looks like no matter what, his one and only home is in people's heart. The archangel of our story is with us. You can close your eyes and talk to him. Love can be so tough, but we should fight for it. And if it didn't work, we are still the winners because we have no regrets. The end.